His Excellency, Sir S.W. Tapley Seaton, our Governor General, Prime Minister Dr. the Honorable Timothy Harris, Honorable Sean Richards, our Deputy Prime Minister, Honorable Lindsey Grant, Honorable Eugene Hamilton, Honorable Wendy Phipps, Sir Kennedy Simmons and Lady Simmons, His Lordship, Mr. Justice Eddie Ventos, our High Court Judge, Ambassadors, High Commissioners, members of the Diplomatic and the Consular Corps, Ms. Josephine Huggins, Cabinet Secretary, Mr. Osbert D'Souza, Permanent Secretary in the Office of the Prime Minister, and other permanent secretaries, Registrar of the High Court, Mrs. Janine Harris-Lake, specially invited guests, and a special welcome to our students, ladies and gentlemen. It is an absolute honor for me to have been asked to deliver the feature address in this, the Prime Minister's Independence Lecture Series, in commemoration of our 35th anniversary of independence. And I would like to extend my sincere thanks to the Honorable Sean Richards, Deputy Prime Minister and Chairperson of the 2018 Independence Planning Committee, and to the members of his committee for extending the invitation. I feel compelled to remind the Honorable Prime Minister, my former classmate, as Lindsay indicated in sixth form, and Lindsay's recollection of the goals, we'll have to speak about that on some other occasion. My former classmate in sixth form at the Bastia Senior High School, that there was a book in the school's library at the time entitled, "So You Want to Be Prime Minister?" Looking back now, I think the very presence of that book should have served as an indicator of two things. Firstly, the undeniable capacity that lies within each of our Federation students to achieve greatness, as amply demonstrated by Dr. Harris's ascension to the highest elected political office in the land. Secondly, and importantly, to remind us then as students that our education is not simply a process intended to confer personal benefits on ourselves and our immediate families, but carries with it a corresponding responsibility, an obligation to utilize same in the service of and for the improvement of our country, our people. Back then, I would not have foreseen that one of my classmates would one day be Prime Minister of our Federation. To the students who are here with us this evening, I say, look to your left, look to your right. Note that similarly, your friend, your study mate, a member of the football team or a member of the netball team may one day be Prime Minister of our Federation. The future leaders of our nation may very well be sitting right next to you this evening. The theme for this, the 35th anniversary of independence, is love, service, patriotism, and pride. Mrs. Yvette Slack, one of our well-known and respected primary school educators, who is responsible for creating the theme, is with us this evening, and we extend our thanks to her. In the context of our independence celebrations, this must translate into love for country, service to country, patriotism and pride in our country. But to really go further and make sense of this, it requires a further refinement to read as follows. Love for the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. Service to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. Patriotism in always seeking the best interests of the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, and being proud of our people and nation, and taking pride in everything we do as people of St. Kitts and Nevis. It should not be very difficult to recognize that the foundation for this theme can be found simply in our motto, country above self. Now, these are not mere abstract words, and they are not to be taken lightly. More importantly, we must recognize that they are not self-fulfilling. A theme or a mantra without action and implementation means nothing. In seeking to appreciate the actions necessary by each of us in applying the theme, we need to first recognize that our Federation's continued development is dependent on the individual efforts exerted by each and every one of us. In this symbiotic relationship between personalities that we call a nation, each of us plays a significant role in contributing to our nation's success. Now, significance is not dependent upon the number of degrees a person may possess, what office or position a person may hold, or how much money a person may have. The contribution of each and every individual, regardless of his level of education, social standing, or the size of his bank account, is vital to the success of our nation, and it is important that we recognize this. My father was, as some of you might know, a wholesale and retail merchant operating from Halfway Tree, as Lindsay indicated. In those days, the 60s, 70s, and 80s, yes, we are a little older than we look, his small business was one of the more established commercial operations in the rural area, and he operated a number of delivery trucks that serviced the smaller shops throughout the entire island of St. Kitts. When he passed away, I ran the business for a few years before I resumed my legal studies. I was always struck by the fact of how paralyzed the delivery service became whenever porters did not turn up for work. Needless to say, I know what it is to lift bags of flour, sugar, and boxes of milk. It demonstrated to me just how important each and every employee was, regardless of the position held or the function he or she performed. By extension, in the most complex of operations, the removal or improper functioning of any part, whether big or small, has the ability to bring to a grinding halt the entire operation. We need to ensure that we bring home to each and every citizen the valuable role he or she plays in our country's success by the work he or she performs, no matter how small it may seem in the grand scheme of things. To assist in doing this, we need to ensure that all persons are afforded proper compensation, security, dignity, and respect in whatever job they perform. And then we need to inspire our citizens to strive for excellence in all that they do. Small tasks or relatively simple tasks are not, by definition, insignificant tasks. And regardless of the task, in St. Kitts and Nevis, there are no insignificant people. And in striving for excellence, our true aim should not be to ensure that we do better than others. Our true aim should be to set appropriate targets and to do our very best to achieve those targets. There is a danger in making your goal simply to do better than others. Adopting such an attitude leads to a false and an unjustified state of satisfaction whenever we obtain a B grade, so long as all others get C's. Or when we obtain a C grade, so long as all others fail. This is wrong, and we need to ensure that this never becomes ingrained in our thinking. And if it has, we need to do our best to eradicate it. It leads to an unhealthy and unproductive culture of accepting and rewarding mediocrity, because we measure our own achievements relatively against what others have achieved, rather than against the targets we set ourselves and the best that we can do. In the land of the blind, the one-eyed man may be king, but we should have no desire to be one-eyed or to live in that land. It propels us not to do our best, but to do just enough to do better than the other person. It has the ability to breed division and divisiveness among us. It has the ability to blind us to the achievements that are possible if we combine resources and work towards a common goal. It causes us to compete with others rather than ourselves. Bill Gates wisely said, "Don't compare yourself with anyone in this world. If you do, you are insulting yourself." And as South Korean musician Rain has explained, and I quote, "The biggest competition is myself. I am not looking to follow others or to pull them down. I am planning to test my own boundaries." Considering the theme of love and service, we need to constantly remind ourselves that we have no need to have it all. As Mahatma Gandhi said, "The world is big enough to satisfy everyone's needs, but it will always be too small to satisfy everyone's greed." In the same vein, we should never see our own success in whatever field or venture as requiring the failure of a brother or sister, or denying that brother or sister the opportunity to reach his or her full potential. There is no limit to the amount of A's that are given out by any measure. Of course, in our competition-based capitalist society, we have to make adjustments in our own plans from time to time to accommodate changes brought about by competitive human intervention. But we must be able to change and adapt so that we can ensure that each of us still has the opportunity to maximize our full potential and make a full contribution to our society. This, in my opinion, is the true implementation of patriotism, of putting country above self. And I am firmly of the opinion that there is no limit, apart from the very size of our population, to the number of successful men and women that we can produce. The more successful each individual is, the more successful our nation will be. Success here is not defined by your resultant financial success, but by fulfilling the mandate that you have taken on in your chosen field, which normally, in fact, leads to attaining some degree of financial security. Commitment to constantly do what we positively do to the best of our ability is what is required. In a nation where our constitution commences with the words, "Whereas the people of St. Christopher and Nevis declare that the nation is established on the belief of Almighty God and the inherent dignity of each individual, and are committed to achieve their objectives with a unity of purpose," I'm reminded of the admonition in Luke 9:62 of the fitness of persons who, having put their hands to the plow, yet choose to look backwards. And there is no doubt that we are a people possessing considerable capacity. We have dedicated ourselves to our tasks, worked hard, and persevered. Hard work is the key to success. Indira Gandhi is reported to have remarked, "There are two kinds of people, those who do the work and those who take the credit. Try to be in the first group. There is less competition there." The total surface area of the earth is 510 million square kilometers. Our Federation of St. Kitts is recorded as the 8th smallest country in the world, encompassing a mere 261 square kilometers, reportedly just 1.5 times the size of Washington, D.C. But it is undeniably some of the most beautiful 261 square kilometers that you will find anywhere. On the basis of size alone, it would not be difficult to understand how we might be overlooked. When I attended graduate school in the United Kingdom many years ago, there was a large world map in the common room of our residence. One of my housemates enjoyed having a little fun at my expense. When his friends would come to visit our house, he would introduce me and then go on to say, "He is from St. Kitts and Nevis. You've heard of it, of course. Come, let me show you where it is on the map." Only to take the person to the map and then shout out in pretended shock, because he knew, "Oh gosh, I can't find it. It doesn't exist." But we do exist. It must have been no coincidence that the first British colony was established in St. Kitts in 1623, with Nevis being settled some 5 years later. It must have been no coincidence that the British and French considered St. Kitts and Nevis to be important enough to contest the control of the islands until both islands were ceded to the British under the Treaty of Paris in 1783. Our islands have produced personalities that have made their individual marks on the national, regional, and international stages. United States statesman Alexander Hamilton was born in Nevis. Lord Horatio Nelson spent time in Nevis as a colonial administrator and married Frances Nelson, also born in Nevis. Among our politicians, we count our first national hero, Robert Llewellyn Bradshaw, who was instrumental in the West Indies Federation, Sir Kennedy Simmons, Sir Leal Moore QC, Dr. Denzel Douglas, Dr. Timothy Harris, Sir Simeon Daniel, Joseph Parry, and Vance Amory. Our Premier of Nevis, Mr. Mark Brantley, is one of the few persons to receive a legal education certificate of merit from the Council of Legal Education. And we have recently been joined by Miss Maynard, the first female national to receive that award. Among our almost unending list of sports personalities, we can mention Elcomido Willett, Derek Parry, Crescentia O'Flaherty, Lydia Claxton, Luther Kelly, Keith Atherton, Stuart Williams, Keith Kayamba Gums, Atiba Harris, Virgil Hodge, Tiandra Pontine, Erasmus James, Kieran Powell, Pat Thomas, Jason Rogers, and Antoine Adams. SKN Pulse reports that Texas Christian University has released the names of 6 athletes selected for TCU Letterman's Hall of Fame class for 2018. And among them is Virgil Hodge of St. Kitts and Nevis, who graduated from that university in 2018. How proud we all were when Kim Collins captured gold in the 100 meters in the World Championships in 2003. Now, I recall sitting in my office at the Sands Complex at George Street and hearing someone screaming in the street. Now, I must tell you, my office being located just across from the courthouse, hearing someone screaming in the street immediately conjures certain thoughts of a certain kind. But it was simply the manifestation of overwhelming and unbridled joy and pride by a fellow Newtowner over Kim's then recent achievement. In the scientific and medical fields, we can mention John Gorrie, physician and inventor born in Nevis on October 3rd, 1803, who is considered to be the father of refrigeration and air conditioning. We also have our late Governor General Sir Cuthbert Sebastian. We have Dr. Spencer Amory, Dr. James Jeffrey Liebert, and Dr. Lincoln Sargent. In the fields of banking and professional business services and business, we have produced personalities such as our former Governor General, Sir Edmund Lawrence, Mr. Larry Quinlan, and though not born here, we claim for ourselves Mr. William Kelsick and Mr. Keshu Shandiramani. In the field of law, we have the honor of being the birthplace of 4 out of 10 Chief Justices since the establishment of the new Supreme Court in 1967, namely Sir Maurice Davis, the Honorable Neville Algernon Berridge, the Right Honorable Sir Charles Michael Dennis Byron, and Sir Hugh Anthony Rollins. This fact is most noteworthy as the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court has just itself concluded its 50th anniversary celebrations. Our very own Sir Dennis went on to assume the role of President of the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda, and then to be the 2nd President of the Caribbean Court of Justice. Sir Hugh is now a judge of the International Administrative Appellate Tribunal of the LIO in Geneva, Switzerland. We have produced eminent counsel and legal advisors, including Joseph Archibald QC, Fred Kelsick QC, Sir Lee Elmore QC, and our Governor General Sir Tapley Seaton QC, who in the field of public service has been either legal advisor to or at the forefront of many of the major civic groups and organizations in the Federation, and regionally at the OECS bar. In the field of art and entertainment, we cannot forget Miss Cicely Tyson, Miss Joan Armatrading, Miss Christine Brown, multimedia artist and author Mr. Poga Caesar, writer and teacher, actress and playwright Miss Eulalie Spence, British actor Mr. Bert Caesar, and Mr. Elston Nero. We cannot forget our local artists of more recent vintage, such as New Vibes, Small Axe, Grandmasters, and of course before them, the legendary GI's Brass. Special mention must be made today of Mr. Clement Bouncing Williams, teacher and playwright, who was laid to rest today, and we extend our sympathies to his family. In the literary arts, we have authors such as Professor Carl Phillips, the late Sir Probin Innes, Stanford Lewis, and Carol Otley Mitchell. In education, we have Dr. Kim Malou at St. Augustine, Professor Dr. Jessica Byron Reed at Mona, and Dr. Simon Jones Hendrickson of the University of the Virgin Islands. These are only some of our many notable personalities. There are many, many more. By mentioning some names only, I have run into the unavoidable danger of being accused of omitting others. I ask for your understanding for not mentioning them by name, but space and time will not permit. We are proud of their achievements and we applaud them all. Together, they stand as a combined testament to the intellectual capacity of our people and individually as beacons of inspiration to our aspiring youth. But I will not be heeding my own admonition if I also do not recognize and pay tribute to the men and women in our Federation who have worked consistently and tirelessly, but who are seldom in the forefront. All our bus drivers, our customs officers, our fishermen, our farmers, our teachers, our mechanics, our taxi operators, our restaurant and hotel operators, our civil servants, our small business operators, those at our ports, our police officers from whom we have come to expect so much, our sanitation workers, our secretaries, our office assistants, and our clerks. We recognize and we thank them for their valuable service and contribution to this, our Federation. Our nation is headquarters to the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, the Eastern Caribbean Securities Exchange, and the Eastern Caribbean Securities Regulatory Commission. We are home to the colossal Brimstone Hill, the Gibraltar of the West Indies, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Reportedly, the world-famous hymn, Amazing Grace, was partially the result of inspiration experienced by English slave trader John Newton, some 18 years after he visited St. Kitts in 1754. We operate the ever-popular scenic railway tours. This year, it was reported that St. Kitts received its 1 millionth cruise passenger. Given the island marquee port status in clear recognition of our expanding industry and to further bolster our tourism product, we have embarked on the construction of a second cruise pier. In 2015, we were ranked as number 8 within the top 10 Caribbean cruise destinations by Royal Caribbean and also by Caribbean Journal. In 2017, Thrillist Travel included St. Kitts in its article, "The Best Caribbean Cruise Destinations for Your Next Itinerary." The New York Times has listed St. Kitts in its reference to the Caribbean in its 52 places to go in 2018. Bloomberg Business has listed St. Kitts as one of the 22 destinations that will be especially hot this year, while Thrillist, in January of this year, lauded Nevis with this statement, and I like this: "If you're going to one Caribbean island, make it the home of Hamilton." All of this from just 261 square kilometers, just over 55,000 resident people, with reportedly a separate 12,000 or thereabouts residing in the United States, and most likely a substantial number also resident in the United Kingdom and elsewhere. When one sits back and ponders this, one cannot help but simply well up with pride over what we, as a small twin island state with limited natural resources, have achieved. We have achieved this, however, because we have recognized that our greatest resource is our people. There lies our capital. There lies our investment. Therefore, our love for our country must force us to recognize that our investment, the capacity for brilliance of our people, and all our captivating beauty, all our positive attributes, will be under serious threat of rapid erosion if we, whether by act or omission, allow any members of our society to be dismissed or to become marginalized. This danger will present itself if we fail to act to address the social and economic challenges in our society. Our love for our country requires ensuring that equal opportunities are available to all our people, in particular our young people, those displaying academic abilities and those who do not, but who, in other productive settings or arenas, far surpass the academics among us in natural ability. Particular emphasis should be placed on ensuring the provision of comprehensive education in the trades. It is reported that we are experiencing a dearth of properly trained tradesmen. Alan Greenspan, former United States Chairman of the Federal Reserve, stated, and I quote, "Prejudice of whatever stripe is unworthy of a society built on individual merit. A free market capitalist system cannot operate effectively unless all participants in the economy have the opportunity to achieve their best. If we succeed in opening opportunities to everyone, the affluence within our borders will surely become more equally distributed. Of greater import, all people will come to recognize that they are a part of a system that is fair and worthy of support." I end the quote there. Our love for our country requires us to ensure that we have long-term plans in place for proper, merit, and non-politically based land distribution among our citizens, especially our younger people. And we need to look at the manner in which we construct our low-income housing. While I applaud our various governments' efforts in this sphere, consideration should be given to variety in size and modular design of our government-sponsored homes to allow families to upgrade and expand their homes in the future as education and job opportunities lead to an increase in disposable income. In our capitalist society, the willingness of citizens to work and exert effort as a driver of economic growth is directly related to the opportunity to accumulate property. Dr. Greenspan perfectly explained this when he stated, "The demonstrable driver of economic growth is competition. I cannot improve on Adam Smith's identification in his Wealth of Nations. The natural effort of every individual to better his own condition, when suffered to exert itself with freedom and security, is so powerful a principle that it is alone and without any assistance capable of carrying on the society to wealth and prosperity." Dr. Greenspan concludes, and I think it is important that we note this, People generally do not exert the effort to accumulate the capital necessary for economic growth unless they can own it. Our love for our country requires us to take appropriate steps to comprehensively address crime in our society with total disregard to political affiliation and opportunism. Our love for our country and a recognition of our history requires us to particularly ensure that we do not allow any Kittitians or Nevisians to ever become second-class citizens in their own country. There should be no persons in any social or political group whose rights and opportunities are inferior to any dominant group in society, whether due to race, political affiliation, or any other factor. Our politicians need to be ever cognizant of this. Our people need to be ever vigilant so as to never permit this. Our love for our country requires us to ensure that the rule of law prevails. Access to our courts is preserved, that our courts are housed in proper and secure buildings, are well-staffed and well-funded, and remain free from political and other interference. I refer to Dr. Greenspan again, this time in his presentation, Markets and the Judiciary, who summed up the relationship between the importance of the rule of law and economic development this way. Critical to economic growth is a rule of law, particularly protection of the rights of individuals and property. In referring to the United States experience, he went on to state, short of a few ambiguous incidents, I can think of no circumstances where an expanded rule of law and enhanced property rights have failed to increase material prosperity. We are happy, we are proud that in the World Justice Project Rule of Law Index for 2017 to 2018, which measures the adherence to the rule of law in 113 countries, St. Kitts Nevis ranked a high number 28. Recognizing the direct link between a functioning legal system and economic growth, this, our 35th anniversary, would be an appropriate time for us to recommit ourselves, through the government's lead, of course, to our Halls of Justice project, the aim of which is the construction of modern and performance-oriented court facilities with dedicated courts, dedicated and convenient waiting areas for our citizens, and appropriate security buffer zones for our judicial officers and court personnel. If as citizens we are separated in our ideas, whether political, social, or otherwise, we should on this, the occasion of our 35th anniversary of independence, embrace the theme of love. Love as it relates to respecting the rights of others to hold and express positions with which we disagree. Love as it relates to working with others with whom we disagree for the common good of the state. Love as it relates to considering the effect of our actions on the welfare of others and the nation. Love as it relates to recognizing the obligation that each of us has to contribute to the nation's development. Love as it relates to putting aside prejudices, releasing grudges, and being able to forgive when we think we have been wronged. As Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. stated, darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. By performing your role, whatever that may be, you will be rendering effective and valuable service to your country. It was Mahatma Gandhi who said, the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. We may similarly consider that we may find ourselves by losing ourselves in service to our nation. Now, this does not require us to abandon our own legitimate personal interests, but simply in the pursuit thereof, to aim to do so in a manner consistent with advancing the best interests of our fellow citizens. Our independence anniversary celebrations are a time for reflection and recommitment to the principles upon which our nation was built and continues to grow. I trust that when we reflect on this anniversary's theme of love, service, patriotism, and pride, our reflection will produce a vibrant reawakening in all of us of a spirit of gratitude for what God has bestowed upon us as citizens of this federation, and a commitment to safeguard for ourselves, our children, and those to come of what we all treasure and hold so dear. And so, we take away from this, for our further reflection and action, the following. 1. Despite our small size, our federation has featured prominently on the regional and international stages. 2. Our ability to feature as prominently as we have done arises out of the full utilization of our greatest capital resource, our people. 3. We must continue to develop this resource by investment in the education of all our youth while addressing all the social challenges we face as a nation. 4. Our drive for excellence must be based on doing our best, not simply doing better than others. 5. Our love for our country does not require us to abandon our personal goals, but simply to ensure as best as we can that pursuit of our personal goals is done in a manner consistent with advancing the best interests of our fellow citizens. And finally, true love for our country simply requires us to apply our motto and to put country above self. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you.
Stay up to date with news, programs, and activities of the government with SKNIS. Like us on Facebook. Listen to us on SoundCloud. Follow us on Twitter. And watch our videos on YouTube. Connect with us today. SKNIS, St. Kitts and Nevis Information Service.